Hello viewers, welcome to this edition of AutoShack's Maintenance Motorway. This is Season 1, Episode 4. In Season 1, Episode 3, we talked about the importance of the correct tire pressure and also the dangers of overinflation having too much tire pressure and underinflation having too little tire pressure. We also talked about where to find the correct tire pressure for your vehicle. Now in this edition of Maintenance Motorway, we're going to be talking about how to check tire pressure. We usually get the question, what are the acceptable levels of tread wear on my tire? Stay put, we're going to be talking about that as well. We'll talk about exactly how much wear is enough on your tire, and that should help you figure out when to change your tires. Now let's get to the tire pressure. You can check your tire pressure with some simple tools. This is a digital tire pressure checking tool, and this is a pencil style tire pressure checking tool. They both do the same thing, so we're going to use both of them to check this tire's pressure. So I went ahead and checked what the recommended pressure is for this tire, and it's 29 psi or 200 kilopascal. So we're going to go ahead and get started on measuring the tire pressure. Now remember that this is a very simple procedure, so that is the purpose of this video. If you have one of these tools, you can easily check your own tire pressure without having to drive to the vulcanizer to check that. Obviously, if you have a bigger problem, you have to go to the vulcanizer, but you know, this will save you some time if you can check it yourself. So let's get started. Now before we get started, I'm going to put a link to this tool at the bottom of this video if you want to buy one of these. The other thing also is that if you don't know how to figure out what the correct tire pressure is, please watch our video, Maintenance Motorway Season 1 Episode 3. That should tell you how you can find the correct tire pressure. Okay, so just press the button to turn it on, and you press the same button to cycle through the different units. So let's see, we're looking to do PSI. Okay, so we're in PSI now. Yeah, I changed direction a little bit to help me get a better grip on this. We are looking about 21.6 here. So this tire is pretty low, right? It's 21.6 psi. All right. So what that means is that we need to put some air in this tire. This is underinflated. Here it is. If you can see, 21.6 psi on this tire. So I went ahead and inflated this tire pressure to roughly 29 psi. So let's go ahead and check. So that's about 29.7, which is about 29. Okay, so this tire is at the correct pressure now. Now let's use this pencil style gauge to check as well, to see what we're getting. Okay, and compare to the other one. Get this ready. Okay, so look at that. That's 25. So that's right around 30. So yeah, so the two measurements agree. Okay, 29, 30, yeah, that's okay. Plus or minus 1 psi is fine. So that wraps up the tire pressure checks. Now we want to go on to the tread wear. Now let's get into the tread wear. Okay, we're going to measure that here shortly, but a few words about that. So new tires actually have about 8 millimeters worth of tread wear, about 8 to 10. Okay, averaged about 8 millimeters. Usually you need to replace your tires when you get to about 1.5, and I usually like to approximate that as roughly 2 millimeters. If you have 2 millimeters of tread, it's always a good idea to replace it. Now if you're dealing with a lot of rain, about 3 millimeters should be the limit. Okay, so if you live in a place that has a lot of rain, or you're in a rainy season, it's always good to change your tires no less than 3 millimeters of tread. Okay, I'm going to show you how to measure that. So speaking of the tire wear limits in inches, if you want to change your tire based on wet weather conditions, you'll be looking at 4/32 of an inch, which is roughly 3 millimeters. And if you're changing the tire based on dry conditions on the road, you'll be looking at 2/32 of an inch, which is roughly 2 millimeters. So that agrees with what we talked about earlier, that if you're considering millimeters based on a brand new tire, which is 80 millimeters, then you'll be looking at about 2 millimeters for changing for dry conditions, and 3 millimeters for changing for wet conditions. There is also a wear indicator which is usually built into the tire for most tires. It's kind of hard to see but I'm going to get a different tire to show you. Hold on a second. So if you can see, there's a slightly raised area here, okay, across the tread of the tire, across the width of the tire. You can see that here. So basically that is a gauge. So if you use your tires to the point that the tread is flush with that point, then you know you have to replace your tires, okay. But that is not always easily accessible, easy to see. So that's why it's a good idea to always know how to measure this yourself. It's actually all around the circumference. There's another one here, so that kind of helps you to figure out how much tire wear you have and when to replace it. Like I was saying, you know, the tread gauge for this one is sitting in here, but some tires don't have it. I've seen tires that don't have it, so it's always good to know how to measure yourself, and that's what we're going to be talking about next, how to measure that, you know, amount of tread on your tires here. Let's get to it. So over here I have a tool that I'm going to use to check the tread wear here. It's just a simple tool. It has a needle here that you basically extend out, and then you set it into the tread and then just press it down. It will give you the measurement. So let's get to it. So you can extend it from the back here, and this tool actually does both tire pressure and tread measurements. Okay, so let's go start it again, extend it, and just basically just set it in here. Okay, it's showing us about 3.3 millimeters for this measurement. So we did see that this tire had about 3.3 on it. So if I was going to change it just for the consideration of the rainy season, I would have to change it, you know, pretty soon here, because it's about 3.3. If I was going to change it just based on the dry weather conditions, you know, then it means that I could go to 2 millimeters before I change it. Okay, so I'd have a little bit of time there. 2 millimeters roughly, that would give me another maybe 6 months, maybe less, depending on, you know, it's hard to say because it depends on, you know, your driving style, how often you drive your car and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Now I'm going to show you, if you don't have a tool, I have I guess a rough estimate way of doing it, and it's pretty accurate. So let's get to that. We already know this is 3.3 millimeters. Okay, I'm going to show you how some other ways that I estimate my, you know, tread depth if I don't have my tool with me. I just use a piece of paper basically. Okay, and what I do, and before I continue, remember one good thing about measuring the tread depth is that you have to, it's a good idea to measure it at different spots on the tire. So you can measure it here, you come all the way here, measure it here, and then you go to the other side, maybe measure somewhere else, and then you take the average. Okay, that is a very good way of measuring, because there can be uneven wear on tires. I'll say, let's get back to this here. So basically you use a piece of paper, you know, fold it nicely like that, and then just sit it in here. Okay, you sit it in here, and then what I do, I just kind of bring it against the edge of the tire like that, and I just kind of move it back and forth so I can make a little mark. You can see the little mark. Yeah, that's clearer now. Should give us a pretty good estimate what the tread depth is. Okay, and that's just an estimate, so you need to be careful with that, but it's usually pretty close to what the tool gives you. Alright, so here is a piece of paper, and I have a ruler on there. As you can see, it's hard to see with this, but if you see in the picture that I have on the top left, you can see that we are just about maybe 3.5 millimeters here on the picture. Okay, this video is hard to see, but the picture should tell you enough. So, you know, this is a rough estimate, but it's fairly accurate. Okay, at least it will give you an idea how much tread you have on your tire. Alright, so now we've gone over how to take your tire pressure, how to measure your tread depth, how to look out for the tab that tells you how much tread wear you have, and also you know, what tools can be used for all this stuff here, and even some, you know, rough estimate ways of figuring out, you know, what amount of tread depth you have. This really wraps up this episode of Maintenance Motorway, which is season 1, episode 4. Thank you guys for watching. Remember, don't text and drive, don't drink and drive, and always practice defensive driving. Take care and see you in the next video.